Okay, what's going on, Legion fans? Welcome to another episode of our streaming podcast. We are jumping into a new series. We're jumping into WandaVision. Shiny and new.
And actually, that plays in pretty well here.
It does. So we're jumping into WandaVision, and we're calling this series
the Super Sitcomic Podcast.
That's right, because they're doing the whole podcast, not the podcast. They're doing the whole sitcom theme.
Exactly right, and
they should do a podcast theme.
They should do a podcast theme.
WandaVision podcast.
Just Wanda and Vision on a podcast.
I'd listen to that.
I would definitely.
Paul
listen
Bettany
to that.
and Elizabeth Olsen.
I just listen to Paul Bettany.
Oh, yeah, his voice is
he's Jarvis.
It's butter.
It's wonderful.
I love it, yeah.
He could just tell me stuff all day. I mean, even bad news, I would take better from Paul Bettany.
It's true. Yeah, I wonder if there's any... we should look up audiobooks read by Paul Bettany. He should read all of them.
That would be many. I mean, he's got that British accent.
He does, but it's not just that. There's something about it. Ever since A Beautiful Mind, remember A Beautiful Mind?
Yes.
He was so good in that. That was great. Anyway, so we've got a new series out on Disney+. It's the WandaVision series, and it just dropped this past Friday.
That's right.
First 2 episodes. So we're going to do our reaction and kind of review of the episodes, and then we'll jump into what we think, kind of theories, what's coming up next, what we think will happen as we progress through the series. So if you have not watched WandaVision yet, episode 1 and 2 are out streaming now. Go watch it, because spoilers from this point on, we don't want to ruin the series for you.
Not at all, but we have continually told people about spoilers, and I just don't care anymore. So, I mean, if you're listening, you're probably going to get some spoilers.
Yeah, just assume spoilers.
Just assume spoilers all the time on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, well, for sure, because what's good to talk about when you're not talking about spoilers?
Exactly.
They're the most fun.
And our theories are usually spoilers, as we've seen to this point. If you listen to some of our old stuff and what's coming up, I'm even talking about some of the DC Keaton stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
they keep pulling from our ideas.
They keep stealing our ideas.
Well, we've changed our studio location, so maybe they haven't bugged us yet. But
I know.
In all honesty, keep bugging us, because our ideas are good and we want to see them happen.
Exactly, but I'd like a little bit of credit.
A little bit. Just a little under the table.
Just a little bit of something.
Yeah, a little bit of something. All right, so let's jump into, we're going to go episode by episode. We'll go through our reviews, and then we'll jump into theories. So the first episode... 29 minutes long, but not really.
Not 29 minutes long. 21 minutes long. 8 minutes of credits.
Man,
and that's 8 minutes of credits even without the stinger at the end. So,
super short.
I was really excited for 29 minutes, and then I got 21. But either way, I'm going to name right off the bat, disappointed.
Yeah, I'm a big Marvel fan.
Yes,
I'm usually really optimistic about these. And I'm still, let me change that. I'm still optimistic, but I'm usually really... excited about them, and I was disappointed too. It's underwhelming.
Yeah,
for me.
And I'm going to name this. Here's the thing. We know that this is going to get better. We know that there is a lot that they're going to start to unpack with this.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
But the thing is, if I'm a casual Marvel fan, if I am somebody who just has watched the movies, and now they're starting to kick off the TV run for all of these new Marvel shows.
Right, and Mandalorian did so well.
Exactly.
Like Disney Plus knows how to work this.
Right, and we're seeing, and we named this in a previous podcast, that we believe the Mandalorian is actually the jumping off point for all of the Star Wars movies and all of the crossovers that can happen.
Yeah.
Similar to Arrow in the Arrowverse.
Yep.
This is what we believe is essentially supposed to be the kickoff for Marvel's TV universe.
Right.
And it was really disappointing. If I am a casual fan, just watches the movies, haven't dug into the comics, and I'm just going to probably turn this off, because they really dug into the Leave It to Beaver vibe.
Yeah.
And but they didn't really open it up for what you're expecting in terms of, like, at some point there's going to be a twist, at some point there's going to be a drop, and it just was really underwhelming even when the slight drop happened.
Yeah, and it's such a juxtaposition to, like you were saying, for casual Marvel fans who they're so used to seeing the kind of knock you around, fast-paced, action-set Marvel movies. Which, again, we're not against dialogue-based movies or dialogue-based shows, but you're so used to it in Marvel, and then to go into an episode where literally the most exciting thing that happens is Wanda, makes all the food fly around her.
Right.
There's no real action at all, which, again, is not a bad thing.
No,
but I think it was I think it caught us off guard. And I also felt like in the second episode, the jokes landed a lot better. The first episode felt a little bit flat, and they were going for that cheesy sitcom feel to it, which that's fine. But give us a little more. Give us something that's going to hook not just the people who are sold into Marvel, but the people that are just jumping in.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What I did really like about the episode is you really did enter into the episode with the same amount of knowledge as Wanda and Vision.
Yeah,
it was
agreed.
clear that they are entering into this sitcom and not really knowing how they got there. And they're entering in trying to kind of play off like things are normal and like they know what's going on, but they don't.
Right.
They don't know where the heart came from. They don't know any of their background. They don't know like how they got to where they are. And all of that really plays out throughout the entire episode. You see it more when Vision is at his job and he's talking about, well, what do we do here? Well, we do computations.
Right.
And computations for what? Imports and exports of the company.
Yeah.
Well, what do we make? Computations.
Right.
Like,
right, and that's harkening back to like famous sitcoms with Friends and Chandler, and Chandler works for a computer company that he doesn't know what they really do, and that's her ongoing joke, and so they're pulling a lot of really great
they pull that from
jokes
the sitcom,
from that,
but the other reality is it also shows they don't really know what's going on,
right, which is great, which and again, I don't think you were disappointed with that idea.
No, I'm not disappointed with that idea at all.
But they could have set that up in like 10 minutes and not 21 minutes, and they could have used the other 10 minutes to then kind of build us into a little bit more of a dynamic storytelling for that. So it felt a little boring.
Yeah, it felt boring, and then also even when you got to see where you really start to see it off at the dinner party.
Yeah, the dinner party, yep.
What ends up happening is you get engrossed in the character choking, his boss, Mr. Hart, choking on something that Scarlet Witch made, and then his wife and Scarlet Witch and Vision not reacting to it.
Like you would normally expect.
Expect, like, somebody do the Heimlich.
Right.
Like, nobody reacts to it.
Yeah.
And she has to command Vision
to
then help. And that help is not like just like a Heimlich maneuver. He actually phases into him.
Right.
It doesn't land.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it was eerie though. Like
it was certainly eerie.
Deborah Jo Rupp plays Mrs. Hart, and we know her from things like That 70s Show and Friends, and she's always kind of like the innocent, kind of bubbly character that just seems a little out there. But her just like asking her husband to stop it. Right, and she's just kind of like chuckling it off while he's dying over there, it was odd. It gave you that feeling of disequilibrium, which is good.
Yeah.
We wanted that. That was a good thing.
I would have liked more of that.
Yeah. And that was like the last 5 minutes of the episode, and that again they could have. I don't know. I just think the pacing was
and then they
off.
just leave.
Yeah, well, that was really weird. I like that though.
That made it
was
even
really
more weird.
And he's like, "You're going to get a promotion, or we're going, you'll go far in this company." And it's like, what?
Yeah,
what is happening? Which is good. I think that's good. That part I didn't mind. It was everything that got us there.
Yeah, everything leading up to that point just didn't hit.
Yeah,
and it was one of those things that, like I said, I would have turned it off. Had I not been such a big fan of Marvel, had I not been such a big fan of Scarlet Witch and Vision, and knowing that this is going to go someplace further, I would have turned it off.
I agree. Yeah, and again, we talked about this previously, but I wonder if that was a reason why they released the first two. They realized the first one was a little bit flat, a little bit slow, and so they wanted to release a second episode just to kind of
draw
you
going. More.
Yeah, because even if somebody's kind of like, about the first episode, the second episode's right there.
Yeah.
And Disney Plus will be like, oh, next episode starting in 19 seconds. And most people are gonna sit into it and walk into it, which is good because the second episode was way better. It had a lot more character life to it, and it progressed the story a little bit more, gave us a lot more questions.
Yep.
But the second episode was really good.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Before we go on to the second episode, the one little Easter egg that I want to make sure we point out is the wine bottle at dinner.
The wine bottle,
The wine bottle, if you didn't catch it, I don't remember the exact French name that they had there, but what I did see was that it translates to House of Contempt.
Right.
And if you don't translate the last word, it's House of M.
House of M. Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that that's actually alluding to more of the storyline that we're actually getting from this, because it does tie into more of what we saw in the second episode.
Right. And House of M is for those of you who don't know, is a classic Marvel run that involves Scarlet Witch and involves her creating reality with her powers.
Yep.
It involves her creating children with her powers. It also involves her making a bunch of mistakes with her powers and kind of having to live with the repercussions. It also involves the famous line, "No more mutants."
Exactly.
Right. And so we've been talking about how are they going to tie mutants into the MCU. And maybe they'll do like a reverse where she creates mutants. Maybe with her children. It could bring they could bring Wiccan into it and have him kind of be the entry point into the Young Avengers.
Yeah.
And so this could open up a lot of things if they go down some of those routes.
Well, this is my hope that there's an opportunity for us to really tie in X-Men in some way into this and actually start introducing that, because we know that the way that she received her powers through the Mind Stone and her brother, like the original storyline for her and Quicksilver is actually that they're children of Magneto.
Of Magneto, they're mutants.
And so it's a different story, but it's an opportunity now for us to kind of still tie in X-Men mutants into Scarlet Witch's storyline.
Yeah, and they could easily be like, well, Strucker's experiments just awakened her mutant
genes.
Latent
genes,
which is then that would be an easy fix, and I think that's probably the route that they'll go down. Speaking of Strucker, he actually comes in the second episode.
Yeah, why don't we just switch over to that at this point?
Well, and real quick before we do the first episode, there's commercials in every episode. I'm assuming they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And in the first season or the first episode, the commercial advertised Stark Industries.
Yeah.
Right. So they're advertising things that go along with the MCU and with her history. And so the second episode, they had a commercial again, and it advertised Strucker.
Yeah.
Strucker watches with a Hydra symbol on it. So it seems like things from her past are coming up, but I'm assuming they're going to be a reoccurring thing in every episode.
So I hope that they do have those commercials in each one, because it's definitely giving us little tidbits.
Yeah.
Little sneak peeks at what they're really trying to build at.
Oh, and they're so much fun. Yeah, they're so great. So the second episode, way better.
Way better. So this was the episode that I kind of hoped we had gotten. You know? And
this would have been a good first one.
I think that's exactly right. I think that they were going for something with that first episode. It didn't hit. It didn't land. So they just decided to release both of the episodes, because they weren't going to come back and reshoot the entire first episode.
Right.
The second episode, the beats landed a lot better.
Way better.
The jokes landed a lot better.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to really engage with some more of the weird, off-putting juxtaposition. And like the allusions to things are off.
Yeah, more
things
interactions with the neighbors.
But it wasn't too much.
Right, I agree.
It was just little hints, subtle pieces along the way.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
That's what I was really looking for.
Definitely. And things start to open up and kind of unravel for Scarlet Witch in the fact that she starts seeing color.
Right.
So the whole series is in black and white, and she starts seeing color and in different areas. She sees it on a helicopter, which you had mentioned that there's a loud noise that she hears. And then she like rushes outside, and there's a little mini helicopter in her bushes.
Right, which makes no sense with the amount of noise that is made.
Right.
And on this, and this is what we didn't touch on yet with the first episode.
Yeah.
But on it, you see the symbol for sword.
Right. Yes.
Which goes back to the closing
the
credits.
Closing stinger. Yeah.
The stinger for the first episode.
Right.
In that you see that Sword is watching the sitcom playing out.
Yeah, like a TV show for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So introducing Sword at this point is huge.
Right, yeah. And for you guys who don't know Sword is like an offshoot of S.H.I.E.L.D., in which S.H.I.E.L.D. is the kind of the armor that goes around the Earth, so it deals with things that are on Earth. And then Sword, which was actually created by Joss Whedon and a few other writers, is an extension of S.H.I.E.L.D. that goes out into space. It's kind of like a preemptive defense for the Earth. So it's like a galactic force
You know
that
what?
will stop
What
things.
Tony really wanted to have happen with Ultron,
Exactly.
but now Sword
Yeah.
is that thing.
Yeah, and we saw Sword at the very end of Spider-Man: Far From Home in the end credit scene where Talos kind of tries to contact Nick Fury, who's out in space,
Yeah.
with Skrulls on some kind of space station or spaceship where he is running Sword out in space.
Yeah.
And so which is cool, which means that the threat level in this show is going to be galactic. It's going to be like a huge threat level
Yeah.
that's extraterrestrial or something that's outside of Earth that's dealing with Scarlet Witch in this, which is awesome. What a great opening.
Which also goes to, we're talking about the crossover potential here.
Yeah.
And this could go to what we already know has been announced for the Eternals.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, it'll definitely most likely tie into the Eternals, and we know Wanda is going to be in Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange, so it'll most likely tie into that as well.
And we know that the villain, like you were just saying, has to be something huge.
Yeah,
it can't be something small.
Definitely.
It can't be, one of the B-list, C-list villains that only has to do with Vision or only has to do with Scarlet Witch. It has to be something that's much bigger. It has to be introduced on a larger scale, which we're going to get into some of the theories and some of the different ideas. We're going to talk about which ones we believe and which ones don't fit with everything that we're then seeing.
Right, that go along with what people are kind of talking about for these first couple of episodes.
Sure.
We get a lot more of Catherine Hahn's character when she comes up to Scarlet Witch when she finds the helicopter, and she actually makes a great comment there where she talks about the star of the show,
right?
And Wanda's super confused, and then she says, "Oh no, it's the bunny rabbit that she's talking about." But Agnes has been showing in the first episode and in this one even more so that she knows more about what's going on than she lets on.
Yeah,
she kind of realizes it's fake or something.
She clearly has a understanding that this isn't right.
There was a lot of theories coming out even before the show was released that she was Agatha Harkness.
Right.
And Agatha Harkness is a sorceress from the Marvel Universe. She goes back. She was in like the Salem witch trials. She's a very ancient character, and she's played a big part in a lot of the comics where she's actually the nanny for Reed Richards and Sue Storm's kids, and then most notably is she helps train Scarlet Witch to become a better witch, and she also has dealings with big villains like Mephisto, which we'll talk about later in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, that is, and then she also starts getting into even some of that like biblical references.
Yeah.
When she starts to introduce Dottie, which she knows a ton about Dottie, and Dottie has a lot of control over what's happening in this town and the people in it. And she makes the reference that her roses look divine.
Right.
And Dottie doesn't even really like respond to her.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of weird. It seems as though Agnes has a little bit of immunity.
Yeah, that she can
in
just
this
operate
world. She's able to
individually,
operate on her own,
autonomously.
say things that others don't really respond to. Because we see later on, at the meeting about the fundraiser.
Yeah.
Other people are getting scolded for talking. Scarlet Witch gets scolded for
talking out of turn.
Yeah. And Catherine Hahn's character does the exact same thing, and nothing happens to her. Actually, she takes a bit of a dig at Dottie.
Yeah.
Dottie makes the comment, "The devil is in the details."
Yeah.
And she says, "If that's not the only place it is."
Right. Yeah.
Or that's not the only place he is.
Yeah, which goes into one of our theories that we'll be talking about with Mephisto, and we'll get into that more in a little bit. We meet another character though at that meeting, played by Teyana Paris, and she calls herself Geraldine. And when she introduces herself, it kind of seems like either she doesn't really know who she is, or she's giving some false information, because we also know that she's going to be playing Monica Rambeau, the grown-up Monica Rambeau.
Exactly.
And Monica Rambeau, for those of you who are comic fans, you'll recognize that name pretty quick. She was seen as a kid in the Captain Marvel movie, but in the comic books, she plays Captain Marvel. She actually is Captain Marvel. And she's also a superhero named Photon, which I'm assuming is probably where they'll go since they already have Brie Larson in as Captain
Yeah, I don't
Marvel.
think they're going to do anything with removing Brie at
Yeah,
this point.
not at this point. But she'll probably jump into the moniker of Photon.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet. There's also been rumor, and we've seen it in the trailers, that she might be either operating with or operating as a part of SWORD, and we'll talk about that more as we get into it. But for right now, she's Geraldine, and she seems kind of clueless, but she also seems like she's trying to get involved with Wanda and Vision.
Yeah.
And that might play
Trying
into
to
the fact
build a
that,
bit of a relationship.
yeah, the fact that she might also know a little more than what's going on about what's going on. Yeah.
Exactly.
So great episode, really, really fun. At the very end of the episode, and this is how we'll wrap up our review, and then we'll jump into theories. Very end of the episode, we get a little bit more of not really it wasn't an after credits thing, it wasn't a stinger, but the very last little bit, they come home from the talent show,
Right.
and they talk about the silly line that Dottie was saying for the children, which is really creepy.
For the children.
For the children, yeah, for the children. And they say they kind of comically say that, and then Wanda's like, "Is this happening?" And she's
Wanda's pregnant.
all of a sudden pregnant, like
All of a sudden pregnant.
already showing.
That's not how it works. I have four children.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Oh man, that'd be way easier.
I'd be in a lot of trouble. We've been saying for the children a lot.
Yeah, we would be. So that happens, and then we hear a noise outside again. They go outside to investigate, and a creepy dude is crawling out of the manhole cover, the sewer.
It's the beekeeper.
It's the beekeeper, right? Which
famous villain
famous villain of the Marvel universe.
of the Marvel universe, the beekeeper.
Well, he's got a sword symbol on the back of his jacket.
Well, you had another theory about
about
you
the
said-
beekeeper.
No, about the symbol on his back.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so the second ring is not quite the same. So if you look at the symbol in episode 1 at the very end, the sword symbol has one circle around it. But the
Right.
sword symbol or the supposed sword symbol, it's very dirty on the beekeeper suit, so you can't really see it. It's got a second ring on it around the symbol. And so people are speculating, and I don't know if it's true, but maybe he's part of AIM. AIM's characters are notoriously in big yellow jumpsuits that kind of look like beekeeper suits. And AIM has been in the MCU. It was in Iron Man 3.
Garbage movie.
It was a garbage movie, but they did introduce AIM, so they could bring it back.
I think,
but I don't think it is. I think
thought
it's
in
Sword.
that is, I think it's Sword. I don't think it's AIM.
I don't think so either.
Pulling in AIM and Sword within 2 episodes would
Yeah.
be way too much,
Yeah.
and it would just unfocus what everybody's looking to do with this series.
It would be. I think it would be a pointless red herring. But
Right.
I think the important part is she sees him, and she says no.
No.
And when she says no, it reverses everything, goes back in time, and she gets to replay that moment. So we see that she does have a lot of control in here. Even though we've seen, like with Sword trying to reach her, it kind of sounds, they were asking, who's doing this to you?
Right. Over the radio when she's meeting with Dottie.
Yeah. But this at least points to the fact that she has some control, right? She's doing things.
And there's some people who have speculated that she has too much power.
Right.
And I completely disagree with that.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly believe even if somebody was doing this to her, she would still have some level of control because of how powerful she is.
Yeah, she's super powerful.
We know that in Endgame, the director came out and said the only hero who would have been able to take Thanos on by herself was Scarlet Witch. And she was there. She was ready to do it. Had he not called down Hellfire,
right, she probably would have.
She would have filleted him alive.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I mean, she has one of the most tragic backstories.
Oh, it's the worst.
Then drive her to a place where she may be doing this to herself.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to you about
Right.
I believe that she has closed herself off to an extent.
Yeah.
Because she's had to go through seeing her parents killed.
Right.
She's had to go through seeing her home country of Sokovia destroyed.
Yep.
She's had to watch her brother die in front of her.
Right.
She's then had to lose the love of her life. Not once.
Right.
Where
Twice.
she has to kill him to try and prevent Thanos from getting the Mind Stone.
Yeah, it's messed up.
But she has to then watch Thanos actually still kill him.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised that she's having a traumatic break at all.
Yeah.
However,
the dusting was probably a grace to her. She was thankful that she died, and then when she came back now she has to live in a world still without
vision.
Yeah.
And so this is still, I'm still, to some extent, I wouldn't be surprised that if she was doing this to herself.
Yeah. Oh,
and closing herself off. But I do believe then Sword has her body.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Right. You were telling me this before.
And so they are trying to break into whatever mental cocoon she's put herself in.
Yeah, and she's most likely being encouraged with this cocoon by whoever the big bad is.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that now. So let's jump into our theories. We've already talked about kind of some of them.
Yeah, so here's the theory that I don't agree with.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so in the second season opening when they have the animated cartoon.
Like the Bewitched callback,
style, there is a quick moment where you see a helmet and some bones, and the helmet looks exactly like the Grim Reaper's helmet.
Right, it's in like some bookcases in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some people who speculate the Grim Reaper could be the villain. I think he's too small.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the Grim Reaper story that they were discussing was in Scarlet Witch and Vision. It was issue 3 of Volume 1.
Yeah.
And in that, the Grim Reaper is hunting down or speaking out and fighting against artificial Avengers.
Right.
Similar to what the Vision and the Scarlet Witch would be.
Yeah. They were like
they were created not born.
Right.
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
I don't think so
here.
either. Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a wink. I think it's a bit of a nod.
And
a
Scarlet Witch
egg.
and Vision villain. That's cool. Yeah.
Sure, but I don't think he is actually the villain.
No,
I think it has to be much bigger.
Yeah.
Which then brings us to Mephisto.
Right. So there's only a few. We're trying to think of like who could be the villain that could step in after Thanos. Somebody that could be powerful enough to give them a run for their money.
Build across both a cinematic and a television universe.
Because even though this will tie into other TV shows on Disney Plus, this is also kicking off the new phase in the MCU movies.
Exactly.
So it's got to be something big that they're all going to have to kind of rally behind to defeat. So we thought of things like we actually thought of Kang the Conqueror, which
you talked about Kang a while ago.
Yeah, he's been announced for the Ant-Man 3 movie, which I still think he'll be a big player, but he's not going to be the big player.
We think he's actually leading up to the big bad.
Exactly, yeah. And so then we thought about Galactus because they did announce the Fantastic Four movie, and so well, maybe Galactus might come in. And
I think they're still saving Galactus.
I think so too.
He is, like final before they reboot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the Eternals might end up starting to plant seeds about him, but I don't think it's going to be him either. What makes the most sense is Mephisto. And we mentioned him a little bit with the Devil in the Details comment. Also,
Roses looking divine.
Yeah, and the first color that we see is red, which is Mephisto's.
And
Mephisto's
then
red.
finally, for the children.
Right, and for the children, yeah, because there's a major storyline.
Oh, I got to check if my wife is pregnant again. Actually, she is.
Oh, way to go!
Way to go!
What have you done?
I don't know.
Oh well. Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we see those things here in this series, but then we also see the idea of her creating her children, and there's storylines where Mephisto kind of manipulates her into creating these magical children and things like that. And we also see the trailer for Loki. There's a stained glass window in the time variance area that looks very similar to Mephisto, and we know that these shows are going to be kind of connected that way. Mephisto also has a big hand in the multiverse, and so the Multiverse of Madness is coming up, and so he is a kind of a trans-dimensional galactic villain that embodies the idea of evil in multiple galaxies and multiple planets. And so I think he would be a good jumping off point for the big bad in this new phase.
I agree. The thing that I don't believe, though, is there's some people who believe Dottie is Mephisto.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that. I could see her being manipulated or
like a
being
mouthpiece.
a minion or a mouthpiece of Mephisto, but I don't believe that she actually is Mephisto.
Yeah.
I just in some of her other comments and the ways that she's interacting with characters, I think she'd have a lot more control than even what she's showing right now.
Right, and even Agnes's response to her that the devil is elsewhere, Dottie talks about the devil as someone else, and Agnes confirms that, oh, well, he's other places too. And Dottie
And she
kinda
doesn't
feels,
even respond to it.
Yeah,
Like, she
she
doesn't
just
even do
keeps
anything about
going.
it. Like, Mephisto
Yeah.
would definitely do something about that or say something about it.
Yeah, and I'm okay with Agnes. If Agnes is Agatha Harkness, I'm okay with Mephisto kind of letting her do things, because
Exactly.
Agatha is not like a cut and dry good guy.
Yeah, she's an anti-hero.
Yeah, she just kind of exists in her own agenda, and I think Mephisto would be interested in that.
Yeah,
like would
I agree.
want to see it play out. He's that arrogant to think that he has control and that
Mhm.
he can just let her do what she wants. But I think she's going to come in and be the catalyst, along with Monica Rambeau, of kind of pulling Vision and Scarlet Witch out of there.
Well, I think there's more to that too, because we see in the trailer that she's like petrified.
Yeah,
Um,
right, yeah.
And that's also where she says that Vision
Is dead, or
is
is supposed
dead,
to be dead.
or is supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
And this goes to my other theory.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to talk about, which is, where is the
Oh, yeah, it's a
Mind
good one.
Stone?
Yeah, where's the Mind Stone?
Because she says that Vision is dead,
Right.
but I don't actually know if Vision is actually dead.
Yeah.
Because I believe you see and we know Steve Rogers had to go back in time, and he had to return those stones to where they got them.
Right.
So that the way that the Ancient One discusses it, there aren't all these other timelines
Right.
that then come out from when they took the stones.
So where did he put the
they
Mind
have
Stone?
to clip the branches per se. And so where did he take the Mind Stone back to?
Yeah, yeah.
Did
At
he
what
take
point?
the Mind Stone back to Vision's body,
Right.
which would essentially and potentially could repair it,
Right. Bring Vision back.
and bring Vision back? We also don't know where his body is.
Yeah.
His
yeah.
body was left in Wakanda, which is the one place that could actually repair his body, because his body is made of vibranium.
Right, organic material and vibranium, and so
Exactly.
they could be the ones that could fix him.
They could fix him. So we don't know if he's actually dead, and I'm kind of the belief that, and I like to believe this, but Steve kind of broke the rules maybe a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
And in returning the stones,
Yeah.
he probably went back and returned it for his friend so that he could live again and be with Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I would say that would fit right inside Steve's character. He was willing to sacrifice the galaxy for one life because
Right.
he didn't see that anyone was more important than anyone else. So I could
And
definitely
he
see that,
also
which would
broke
be
it
awesome.
for himself.
Oh,
he
yeah,
broke it for
for
himself
sure.
by
Yeah,
staying.
he got the girl.
He got the girl.
Yeah.
He got to stay in history and live out the life he wanted to have.
Yeah, and to even go a step further, I wonder if, and we haven't talked about this yet, but I wonder if Vision is working with Sword, and he's another plant to get Wanda out. Like, I wonder
Maybe.
if he's been inserted in there, because if
She may have closed herself off before Vision came back to life, maybe?
exactly, and then
Yeah.
they found it. So maybe Nick Fury knows everything. Maybe he found Vision and is like, oh, she'll listen to Vision,
Right.
and is using him to kind of go into it.
Well, he's slow playing it a ton, if that's the case.
Well, but we see that Monica Rambeau's character, she doesn't. It seems like she's almost confused as to why she's there. Even the trailer, she doesn't know why
True.
she's
So
there.
it could be that.
So
if
maybe
you go
entering
in,
into it, yeah, you have to find yourself again before you
right,
can help her
why
out.
you're there, what you're doing there.
Exactly.
Mm,
Yeah, which
that
would
could
be
be
really
true.
cool. Yeah, and that goes into the last thing I want to say here, and then I'll let you have any closing thoughts if you have any. One last theory that I'm going to put out there is that Monica Rambeau, I believe she's joined Sword as she's grown up.
Yep.
For the purpose of finding her Aunt Carol, for the purpose of finding Captain Marvel, because she knows Sword
Sure,
goes out
sure.
into the galaxy. So she gets recruited by Sword in hopes of finding Captain Marvel, and then she gets put on this detail to go in and like into this mental mind landscape that Scarlet Witch has created and bring her out. And so she's a Sword agent that's gone in, but the purpose that she joined Sword for was ultimately to find Captain Marvel and to bring her home.
That could be the case. I could believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a lot on our hands.
Yeah.
I am in the closing piece. I was much more impressed with episode 2
Yeah.
than episode 1.
Me too.
If we take them together, it was a good start.
Yeah,
I'm excited now about seeing more of what happens. But yeah, episode 1 just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I agree. But 2 was better, and hopefully
Yep.
3, now that we enter into Technicolor, right? Hopefully 3 might be even better than that. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Legion of Comic Correction. Don't forget to check out our other episodes streaming everywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're also on all the other major social platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, just search Legion of Comic Correction. Our YouTube page has some extra video content, and check out our Patreon for exclusive supporter specials at patreon.com/Legion of CC. New episodes come out every Monday, and we will see you guys next week, same time, same place, same Legion.